So, what do you make of their turnaround? Because I look at Bradley Beal's numbers, they're down, but yet the team is performing better, and they lost Russell Westbrook. So, kind of with this roster, can you kind of go over why they're performing better with Bradley Beal not having that much offensive output compared to years past?
Yeah, I think it's just like the adults in the room theory, right? Like last year, you had two guys that were insanely high usage, and one of them in particular started particularly poorly in Russell Westbrook, kind of took a while to shrug off some injury, and it really hampered them. I think they started like 17 and 32 at one point last year, and it was kind of miraculous that they made a playoff run, to be honest. Whereas, this year, I think it's just you're not so reliant on the same two guys. So the fact that you have, let's say 10 deep potentially, and that's without Rui Hachimura and Thomas Bryant so far, and they've missed some other guys to injury. So I think realistically, it's just next guy up or next man up has sort of been the team's motto. And I actually think, it's not just lip service that actually kind of applies to this group.
Matt, where do you kind of fall as far as like feelings with Russell Westbrook leaving the franchise and how that whole trade went down? Can you obviously it seems like the depth added has been one of the major keys to the season, along with Spencer Dinwiddie playing very well. How did you kind of feel when that trade went down, though?
I didn't love the Westbrook experiment, and not a knock on him as a player. Like I'm a sucker for like a good rebounder, so an amazing guard rebounder is super cool to watch. But
yeah,
it just sort of didn't fit or didn't work. And the late game turnovers, and he and Beal were kind of my turn, his turn. It just seemed clunky the whole year, and it was just one of those things where like they didn't have any kind of long term flexibility. So I think by doing this, like even if you decide this isn't the group for you, you have a lot of different options you could explore in the future. You could chop up some of those guys and trade them out. You could package them in a pick or two for another star that maybe is a better fit. So I think as good as this year has been, this is more of kind of a long-term move for them. And this is like icing on the cake that the short-term bonuses kind of worked out. And you mentioned Dinwiddie. I mean, he's actually been like the scuttlebutt with the fan base right now is like, is Dinwiddie pick up a bust? Because he's actually been the overall numbers look really good. He's had like 3 outlier games where Beal didn't play, and he averaged like 30 points, per 100 possessions or whatever. And then while he and Beal play together, he's at like 17 points per 100 possessions. So it's a noticeable difference when the two of them are on the floor together, and they haven't really figured that out yet. So I think that they've done this without the two of them really gelling. Like you guys said, Beal kind of underachieving thus far, and the team itself is like woeful from the perimeter. So if they get better in any of those departments, add 2 kind of starter level guys back, I think it's kind of incredible that they've done that, given that context.
You mentioned like the idea of adults in the room this year and that being a huge change for the season. I think one of the narratives of last season was that Westbrook kind of willed that team into the playoffs, and maybe that's in part Westbrook hardcore fans. Maybe that is the case. Who has been kind of leading the charge for the team thus far?
Yeah, so let me just throw a couple names from last year's team at you. Garrison Matthews, Mo Wagner, Isak Bonga, Anthony Gill. Like these are guys that started multiple games for them last year. And now you've really replaced them with Montrezl Harrell, who I think has been objectively the best player on the Wizards overall for the year. Like it's unreal to me how good he's been. And I think we all remember we remember Clippers Harrell and the offense, but he's been really solid defensively. I mean, he's not Rudy Gobert, but he's good enough, especially against backup bigs. So he's kind of like been the emotional leader for the team, I would say. And Kuzma somehow being like an almost double-digit rebounder / lockdown defender is not really something I expected.
Yeah.
Shooting's not there. Everybody in the fan base gets a little nervous anytime he dribbles, but he's been good. KCP is an objectively good perimeter defender. So like I said, it's just kind of been by committee, and they've had different guys step up on different nights. So I think that's going to have to be the formula for them until Beal kind of gets it in gear, I guess.
You mentioned Kyle Kuzma, and I'd be the first to admit I kind of totally was hating on him at the beginning of the season. I thought he was totally done, but it seems like he's performed above expectations. Is there a sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop in terms of Kyle Kuzma? You mentioned like his ball handling and his shot making abilities currently not there, but he plays hard on defense. So, like, do you see where there's sort of potential for him to improve in these other areas, or is eventually we're going to kind of see the Kuzma of old? Like, what do you kind of make of him in this new environment? Do you sense anything differently compared to his previous stops in his NBA career?
So the thing I like about him and the thing I don't like about him are just basically the same thing. His irrational confidence that he can be the man in any of those situations. Like,
Yeah.
he's not afraid to take a big shot, and realistically, to this point, he's made them. Like, he won the Cleveland game for them. He basically just beat the Mavericks with a late three rebound, or like a late three and then a big rebound. Like, block on Luka in the final 5 minutes of a game. Like, he's actually won them not single handedly, but you know what I mean. Like, he has contributed significantly to them pulling out a couple close games. So the fact that he's been clutch is great. Like I said, the handle is a little loose. I think he's watched maybe a little too much KD tape or something where like he thinks he's a 6'10" guard or whatever. Although KD never really dribbles all that much, I guess. But anyway, he's doing whatever it takes. Like, he's not shooting an amazing percentage, but he's hit big shots. He's had a couple plays when they beat the Bucks. He had 2 late post ups when they put a smaller player on him. Just things that, I don't know, I kind of didn't expect from what I thought of Kyle Kuzma. He's made some great passes, but he's had some sloppy turnovers. Like, he's kind of teetering on the balance of everything. But right now, it's just far enough in the positive that things are working out for him. But like, you could maybe see some of those things sort of go south, if things don't kind of work out just right for him.
Where do you see this team? I mean, I know we are early on where we have about a quarter of a season sample size. Things could still change quite a bit, between now and come playoff time. But do you see this team with any potential playoff matchup advantages against some of those other contenders in the East?
I think the big thing with that whole adults in the room theory is like it's really good for regular season success, right? If you just roll out 10 competent guys every night over the course of the season, just the fact that you have that depth and presumably fresh enough legs, you're going to beat a lot of teams. But I don't know specifically how that translates to postseason success. I think last year they struggled like so much to make that playoff run that by the time they got to Philly, they were basically just kind of cooked. Like, I don't know, maybe this year it works out a little better. If you're not going to make shots, I think it's going to be tough for them to beat anybody realistically, but I think that applies to any team. The answer question, I don't have sort of a great answer, but it really depends on the matchup, I think.
So to Matt's point, what do you make of the Eastern Conference? Because again, just mentioning my Bulls fandom, they have exceeded above my wildest expectations, and we've seen even the Knicks, in the mix, but the Hawks underperform, and then the Nets are unpredictable without Kyrie, and we even seen the Cleveland Cavaliers perform above expectations. And right now, I honestly say in the NBA as a whole, there's really only 2 elite teams with the Suns and Warriors. So with the Wizards, I would say if they keep at this pace, it's kind of like I don't want to be like overly like underestimating that team. It seems like at any point, anything can happen. What is this kind of the sense of optimism among the Wizards fans? Is it still kind of like it's too early in the season to really have any expectations? Is there any kind of like sense of optimism due to the start, or is it kind of too early at this point?
It depends on what night you ask people. Like, if we win a game and you ask, if people are literally tweeting out the Larry O'Brien trophy on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And if we lose, like we did last night to San Antonio, it's like, hey, is everyone on this team a bust? Who should we trade? Why did we ever believe in this team?
Oh, man.
And you start seeing, like, so point differential is always like a big indicator of like real success or not. And the Wizards' point differential is basically that of like a 500 team. Mm-hmm. So is that closer to what they are? Have they gotten lucky? Have they gotten unlucky? Like, it's kind of tough to tell. I think objectively, if this team got to the second round of the playoffs, that'd be an amazing success story for them, even just being competitive in the first round. But to your question, I know it's kind of a ramble, but I think them, Bulls, Hawks, like I think I could make a case for any of those teams. It's who stays healthiest, who makes kind of some smart deadline moves to address some issues. Like for the Wizards, you start Daniel Gafford. He's an incredible, way to bolster their front court defense. He's a great rim protector for them, but he's really foul prone. Can't play more than 20 minutes a game conditioning wise, which is weird to me for a 23-year-old who just got a big extension. Or a fair but reasonable extension. And then you've got Harrell, where his best thing is like out hustling people in regular season games where the other guys don't really care that much. But does that work? Like, is a 6'7" guy going to guard Joel Embiid in a playoff series? Is he going to stop Giannis? Like, I think the holes become a little bigger in a situation like that, unless, again, you get kind of the right matchup. No disrespect, I actually feel like the Bulls are like a reasonable matchup for them because the Bulls are a little smaller, and it would allow the Wizards to kind of like hopefully throw a lot of bodies at Levine and DeRozan.
You're exactly right, because they played the Nuggets when the Nuggets had none of their starters, and they basically destroyed them inside. I mean, the Bulls pulled it out, but it took like a great performance by Levine and DeRozan to make it happen. So you're exactly right. They're weak in the middle, and especially if Vucevic gets hurt, they're prime for a first round upset.
Tony Bradley, baby.
Yeah, totally.